continue now at the top of Daf Yud Beis Amud Aleph Meseches Rosh Hashana. This is Rosh Hashana Daf 12a. The Gemara is now discussing Rabbi Eliezer's opinion that the Mabul began in Mar Cheshvan, and that was the time when Kima is actually Ola Bayom. The mazel of Kima, the zodiac of Kima, is rising during the day. And the Brisa continues, Umitoch sheshinu ma'aseyim, since they changed their ways, meaning again the people of the Dor HaMabul were corrupt. So Shina HaKadosh Baruch Hu Aleim Ma'aseh Bereishis. So HaKadosh Baruch Hu changed the Ma'aseh Bereishis, changed nature. The Gemara is going to ask what exactly is the change. This is the rainy season. Kima is Ola Bayom. What needed to be changed? But in any case, the Brisa continues, V'hela mazel Kima Bayom. He made the mazel of Kima rise during the day. V'not al shnei kochavim. He took two of its stars away. V'hevi mabul la'olam. And he brought the mabul to the world. We'll take a look at the continuation of Rashi over here, but we're going to go with the girsa of the Bach and the continuation of Rashi. This is going on Rabbi Yehoshua's opinion now, that the mabul began in Iyar. This was the time that the mazel Kima was not Ola, a time when there's not that much rain and water in the world. And it says the Hagos Habach, Yom Shemazel Kima Shokea B'Yom. This was a time when the Mazel Kima, the zodiac Kima, again is setting during the day. You don't see it during the day. Umayonos mismatin mechom yemos achami. You don't have a lot of water in the springs because of the heat. Uposkim hagasham, and the rain stops. V'shina alein seder bereishis. Again, in Rabbi Yoshua makes perfect sense. Hakadosh Baruch Hu changed the ways of nature. V'hele zanav kima b'yom. He brought up the tail of the mazel kima during the day. V'not al shnei kochavim mimenu. He took two stars from it. V'nesgabru hamayonos, and the wells they became full of water. V'shot from again that created the mabul. And Rashi continues, Yom Shemazel Kila Ola Bayom. Again, this is relevant to the previous Amud within Rabbi Eliezer. As Rashi over here explains, Sheba Mar Cheshvan, according to Rabbi Eliezer, the Mabul started in Mar Cheshvan. Ola Akrev B'tchilas Hayom. So the Mazel Akrev, that starts at the beginning of the day. V'achar of Keshes, then comes the Mazel Keshes. Nimtza Teleh Ola B'sof Hayom. So it comes out that the Mazel of Teleh, that actually is rising at the end of the day. It's present during the day. Shina Aleim V'chulu. Then it says, even within Rabbi Eliezer, HaKadosh Baruch Hu changed nature. L'kamon Parach Ma'ashina. Later on, they're going to ask what exactly needed to be changed. It was in the rainy season anyhow. And so the Gemara continues, B'shalom al Rabbi Yoshua. I understand Rabbi Yoshua's position that the Mabul began in Iyar. Hainu dechsiv sheni. That's why the pasuk calls it sheni. As Rashi over here says, Hainu dechsiv sheni sharei Iyar sheni l'chadashim. Iyar is the second in terms of the months, because you would number the months starting from Nisan. Nisan is number 1 and Iyar is number 2. So it makes sense within Rabbi Yoshua. Elul Rabbi Eliezer, but according to Rabbi Eliezer, my sheni. Why are we calling it sheni? In what way is Mar Cheshvan sheni? And so the Gemara says, Sheni Ladin, it was the second month in terms of the judgment. Rashi over here says, Sheni Ladin, Shenigzura Gezerah Alein, Betishrei Shalafanav, the Gezerah against the Dor HaMabul, that happened the month right before in Tishrei, so it's the second month in terms of this judgment. And the Gemara continues, B'shalom al Rabbi Yoshua. I understand according to Rabbi Yoshua, Hainu Deshina, we understand how HaKadosh Baruch Hu changed Ma'aseh Bereishis. Rashi over here says, B'shalom al Rabbi Yoshua, Hainu Deshina, Dehela Mazel Kima B'yom. He brought the Mazel of Kima up during the day. And Rashi continues, V'od Shina L'tigboris Mayanos. Also again, this is a situation according to Rabbi Yoshua, where you're in the season where there's not a lot of rain, so he changed HaKadosh Baruch Hu changed the way of nature in order to bring the rain in the month of Iyar. Elul Rabbi Eliezer, but according to Rabbi Eliezer, Ma'ishina, what's the change in the natural course of events? Again, you have a situation over here where it's the rainy season, according to Rabbi Eliezer. And so the Gemara answers, Kidder Rav Chisda. The answer is, it follows what Rav Chisda said. The Omer Rav Chisda, because Rav Chisda said, Beroschin kilkalu uveroschin nidonu. In heat they sinned, and in heat they were judged, as the Gemara explains. Beroschin kilkalu ba'aveira. In heat they sinned. That's talking about the aveira of arayos. That's considered beroschin. Uveroschin nidonu, and they were judged with heat, meaning they were judged with hot water, and that's the way that HaKadosh Baruch Hu changed the nature in order to make the water hot. How do we know the water was hot? Ksivacha, because it says over here, Vayashoku hamayim, the water abated. Uchsiv hasam v'chamas hamelech shachocha. It talks about the fact that the anger of the king, it started to calm down. So you see, when it says Vayashoku hamayim, it doesn't just mean the water abated. It means the water cooled off. You see that the water was hot. And the Gemara continues, Tanu Rabbanon, the rabbis taught, Chachmei Yisrael, the sages of Israel, Monin Lemabul Krebelazar. They count when it comes to the Mabul, so they count according to the system of Rabbi Eliezer, meaning they start in the month of Tishrei. V'liskufa k'Rebbe Yoshua. But when it comes to the seasons, they count according to Rebbe Yoshua, meaning they start in the month of Nisan. Chachmei Umas Ha'olam, the wise people of the world, meaning not of Klal Yisrael, monin af lemabel k'Rebbe Yoshua. They count even when it comes to the mabel. They follow Rebbe Yoshua's opinion. They count from the month of Nisan. And Rashi over here explains Chachmei Yisrael monin lemabel k'Rebbe Eliezer. The sages of Israel, they count the mabel according to Rebbe Eliezer. Monin shnos Noach, meaning they count the years of Noach, uvrias olam, in the creation of the world, ushnos hadoros, and the years of the various generations. K'Rebbe Eliezer, that they follow Rebbe Eliezer. Monin mitishrei tchilas hashanim. They always start a new year from Tishrei. Below mishum desviralu b'tishrei nivra olam, and it's not because they hold that the world was created in Tishrei. Ella the Tishrei Rosh Hashana l'shanim. They just hold that Tishrei is Rosh Hashana when it comes to years. Uvenisan nivra ha'olam kidekatani. But it was really in Nisan that the world was created. And Rashi continues, V'liskufa k'Rebbe Yoshua. Again, the Chachmei Yisrael, when it came to the seasons, they followed Rebbe Yoshua and they count from Nisan, meaning, Kishemonin tekufas hachama, when they count the cycle of the sun, v'halavana, and the moon, monin mi Nisan, they count from Nisan, lo marsha mi Nisan nivru, meaning to say that the sun, the moon, they were created in Nisan. Uvitchilas leil revi shimsha chama b'Nisan. It was in the beginning of the fourth night that the sun began to serve, so to speak, in Nisan. Lefikach, therefore, in tkufas Nisan ofelas ela b'dalid revi hayom. The tkufa of Nisan, that point in time where we say the sun is starting its new cycle, is always going to be in one of the 4 quarters of the day. You divide the day into quarters, it's always going to be at the beginning of a particular quarter. Lefisha la'olam yom u'reviya bein tkufas shana zu l'tkufas shana shekenegda. Because the rule is that there's always one day and a quarter between tekufa, so it's always going to fall out in one of the quarters of the day. L'shana haba, in the next year, it's always going to be one day and a quarter apart. V'chein moled is halavana. The same thing when it comes to the moon. Monin moled Nisan Rishon Belel Revi. We count the first one in that first Nisan on the 4th night. B'tisha shos v'tof reish mem beis chalokim. In 9 hours and 642 chalakim. And Rashi continues, Af lamabel, when it came to the Chachmei Umas Ha'olam, even regarding the mabel, they count like Rebbe Yoshua from Nisan, Kilomar, as if to say, Leminyan shenos hadoros maschilin mi Nisan. When it comes to counting the years of the generations, we count from Nisan. Limnos, that's when we begin to count. Umabel be'ir yard, and therefore the mabel began in Iyar. V'alkein kishetomar, that's the Bach's change. V'alkein kishetomar bi'achas v'sheish meos. When we talk about the fact that when Noach was 601 years old, Barishon shecharvu hamayim, it talks about the first month that the waters dried up. Nisan, that's going to be Nisan. Sharei mishba dor hamabel shnei masar chodesh, because the judgment of the dor hamabel was 12 months. So again, it goes from Nisan to Nisan. And the Gemara continues at the 2 dots, quoting the Mishnah of Yerakos. We said the first of Tishrei is the Rosh Hashana for vegetables, and the Gemara now says, Tana was taught in a Braisa, Yerakos u'lemaisros u'lenedarim. When it comes to the first of Tishrei, that's the Rosh Hashana for Yerakos, for Maisros, and for Nedarim. And the Gemara now explains, Yerakos ma'ininu Meiser Yerek. What is Yerakos? It means Meiser of Yerek, the Meiser of vegetables. As Rashi over here says, Yerakos Meiser Yerek linyin chodesh v'yoshin. In terms of what's considered new, what's considered this year's Yerek, and what's considered last year's Yerek, what's considered old. She'in tarmin mi Yerek hanilkat erev Rosh Hashana al hanilkat achar Rosh Hashana. The halach is you're not allowed to take off truma from Yerek that was collected before Rosh Hashana on Yerek that was collected after Rosh Hashana. You have to take off the Meiser from the Yerakos, from the vegetables, on the appropriate year. But in any case, the Gemara asks, if that's Meiser Yerek, Hainu Meisers, that's the same thing as Meisers. Why does the Brisa say that the first of Tishrei is Rosh Hashana Liyerakos U'Lemeisros? That's all Meiser. It's all talking about Meiser. What's the difference? And so the Gemara says, Tana d'Rabbanan v'Katani d'Oraisa. The Brisa wants to talk about Meiser that's d'Rabbanan. Meiser of Yerek is only Chayiv and Meiser on a d'Rabbanan level. And also wants to tell us Meiseros, meaning when we're talking about grain, let's say, which is Chayiv in Meiser on a d'Oraisa level, the Brisa wants to identify that as well. And so the Gemara says, V'lisni d'Oraisa b'Reisha. So why don't we list the d'Oraisa first? Meiseros is talking about Meiser on a d'Oraisa level. That should be first in the Brisa. And so the Gemara says, Aidi dechavivale aktama, since it's more beloved, meaning the Yerakos, meaning the Meiser that's the Rabbanan, it was more beloved to the Rabbanan, so therefore they listed it first. And the Gemara says, Vitana didan, what about our Tana? In our Mishnah, we only have Yerakos and we don't have Meisers at all. And so the Gemara says, Tana d'Rabbanan v'kol shekein d'Oraisa. So our Tana lists the d'Rabbanan, and it's a Kal V'chomer. Of course, if there's a day that's set for the Rosh Hashanah, for the d'Rabbanan Meisers, for sure that's going to be true for the d'Oraisa Meisers. And the Gemara continues, V'lisni Meiser, why don't we have it in singular Meiser? What is this Meisros? And so the Gemara says, Echad Meiser Behema v'Echad Meiser Dagan. There's two kinds of Meiser. There's Meiser Behema and there's also Meiser Dagan. The Meiser you take off when it comes to animals and the Meiser you take off when it comes to grain. That's why it says it in plural. And the Gemara says, Velisni Yerek, also by Yerek. Why does it say Yerakos? Why not say Yerek again in singular? And the Gemara says, Trei Gavne Yerek. There's also two kinds of vegetables. The Tanan, as we learned in the Mishnah, Yerek Hanegad, when it comes to vegetables where the normal way is to bind it all together. So Misha Yegad, so we say that it's considered a finished product when you actually bind it. And at that point in time, it's considered what we call a goren. And you're not allowed to eat from it until you take off Meiser. As Rashi over here says, Misha Yegad have a gorno lemeiser. That's considered a finished product for Meiser. Yasser lechol mimenu arayat sheyasser. You're not allowed to eat from it even temporarily until you actually take off Meiser. V'she'eno negad, the Mishnah continues, if you have vegetables that it's not the normal way to bind it, so mishiyamali esakli, again, that counts, that's considered finished from when it fills a vessel, so there are two kinds of yerek, so it says yerakos. And the Gemara continues, Tanu Rabbanon, the rabbis taught, Liked Yerek Erev Rosh Hashana. Let's say a person collected vegetables before Rosh Hashana, Ad Shalotavo Hashemesh, before the sun set, V'chazer V'liked, then he goes and he collects more, and we'll continue with this discussion in the next video on Daf Yud Beis Amud Beis.